Then we go to the last division in the AFC, a division that's pretty much assured to be the Kansas City Chiefs division. And who's going to finish second? We got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. That's all you need.
Yeah.
What do they do in the offseason? Let's see. They didn't really make a lot of moves. They lost Juju, but they retained the rights for Kadarius Toney. Sky Moore's in his second year. They drafted Justin Ross, who's looked really good in preseason as well. Defensively, they're dealing with the holdout of Chris Jones. How will that affect their defense? A couple of question marks. And then there's always, for a Super Bowl champion, how will the Super Bowl hangover treat you? We haven't had a repeat title winner since the 2004 Patriots, almost 20 years ago. So their big concern will be, how will they handle the Super Bowl hangover? Will there be a Super Bowl hangover? And there's also a couple teams in this division that are on the come up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple teams on the come up, and I think the Chiefs are pretty straightforward. We know what we're going to get from Patrick Mahomes. Really, the only question mark with that team is going to be, is Chris Jones going to sign a new contract? Do we have to trade him this year? If Chris Jones is on that team, I have full confidence that they'll be right there in the Arrowhead Invitational for the AFC Conference Championship game. And then also Sky Moore, is he going to take that step this year, or is Kadarius Toney going to be able to step up as well? So I think you really need one of those receivers to step up and be dynamic, but I think the Chiefs made it work last year, going to make it work again this year. But I just don't feel that like chip on the shoulder that they had last year with the Chiefs, where everyone counted them out. Everyone's kind of picking them to win the Super Bowl. And I think when you're a favorite, you have like the capability to get comfortable. And Andy Reid still has moments where you will scratch your head at some of the play calls he has and some of the things he does. But I think overall, the Chiefs are probably the most surefire team. They're going to be right there with the rest of them and probably not going to take a huge step back.
Yeah. And then other teams in that division, you have the Chargers, who have been pretty much the second place team, the team behind them for the last several years. Their big changes this offseason. Last year, they were 10-7. They went into the playoffs. They had a 27-point lead against the Jaguars, completely erased it. Brandon Staley had one of the most historic choke jobs in the history of the NFL. Biggest deficit in a divisional game ever, and also kind of hurt Herbert's reputation a little bit. And then they signed him to this big contract. They kept Brandon Staley. They drafted a wide receiver in Quentin Johnson, who's looked good so far. But a couple of questionable things. Their defense is very expensive, and it kind of needs to perform. You have Khalil Mack, who's entering age 32. You have Sebastian Joseph Day, who hasn't really panned out. J.C. Jackson has been a massive whip at signing so far. Austin Eckler wants to be traded, has a contract dispute there. So there's a little bit of noise in the locker room. Keenan Allen looks like this could be his last year as well. They did go out and get Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator. Last year, the check down king, couldn't really move the football like Mike Lombardi. Thought of Justin Herbert as a rookie quarterback at that point. A lot of check downs, had the lowest yards per attempt in the league with the likes of Marcus Mariota. So he's going to throw the football a lot more. Very bullish on their wide receivers, but Chargers, there's just can never really fully take them seriously, and I'm not super in love with them.
Yeah, I'm not even a Chargers hater. Like, I want to like the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert's cool. I like the arm talent. And then I always hear Justin Herbert's so talented. You have Mike Williams on that team, Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. Like, for me, Eckler and Allen this year are question marks, because I felt like Justin Herbert's best year, Keenan Allen was healthy the full year. And then we had that debacle also last year where Mike Williams was playing in a game where Staley had no business playing him in that game, and then he got a knee injury and wasn't able to play versus Jacksonville, which could have been the turning point in that game, and you could have been moving on to play the Chiefs in that game where Patrick Mahomes rolled his ankle. So, like, for me, the Chargers are always kind of disappointing. I don't really see them having the ability to compete with these high-level AFC teams, and it all comes back to that defense. Because for me, last year, everyone's like, why don't you love the Chargers defense? They signed J.C. Jackson. Well, I'm like, well, here's the thing with New England defenders. It's like, I don't love corners that play in Bill Belichick's system when you had Devin McCourty really manning the secondary. A lot of his interceptions that year were tips and plays made by other players, whereas a lot of right plays at the right time, which is definitely a skill as an NFL player, but he has injury issues coming into this year. So I think that was something I was like, I'm not sure about JC Jackson. Still think he's going to get burned. He's not a lockdown corner where you can just go ahead and put him on an island. Thought he was a product of that system. And then Nick Bosa, his attitude can cost them games.
Joey Bosa,
because like on that team, like he has no problem going at the refs, which is not a good thing, because if you go at the refs, you know what they have no problem doing? Flag, 15 yards, unsportsmanlike conduct. And that was a huge problem in the game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know you feel like you're getting held, but you can't just blow up and then also cost your team an opportunity to win that game and then give up some first downs to Trevor Lawrence. So I think for him, I think he's starting to regress a little bit. Khalil Mack on that team, he was very good last year, but he wasn't as dominant as he could have been, and he's also a year older. So I think that defense isn't going to be good enough to hold them up with the rest of the league where they'll be able to actually compete for a Super Bowl. And then Kellen Moore, there are times in Dallas where I'm like, dude, the run game is going fine. You're up. Just run the freaking football. Why are we making these passes downfield? And I get you want to do that, especially with someone like Dak to CeeDee Lamb. But now with Herbert, you can do that. But with Austin Eckler, if the running game's going good, just run the football. So Kellen Moore is like, he's a good coordinator and he'll help you push the ball down the field. But there's some moments where I'm like, dude, what the hell are we doing? The run game was going fine and you're up 10 points.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's kind of the Chargers narrative. Chargers are definitely cursed as well. Yeah. So a lot of sentiment there.
Their coach should have been fired too, right?
Yeah, 100%. They should have went after Sean Payton. If Sean Payton was taking over this team, I'd feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
But now he takes over Denver. And Denver last year, in case you missed it, check this out. Let's see. They went out and hired Nathaniel Hackett with the idea that they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is not traded. So they go out and they trade for Russell Wilson. Yeah. Pay him this massive contract, goes into the season with Super Bowl expectations, and they were about as much of a tire fire as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Horrible. Russ has his worst season as a pro, arguably hurts his Hall of Fame opportunities as well. A lot of injuries, a lot of just horrible offensive drives. Their defense was really what kept them in games, and even then it still wasn't enough. If they scored even the 24th most points in the league, they would have been 11-5. So this is a team that they go out, they fire Nathaniel Hackett, they bring in Sean Payton, who's been a Super Bowl winning head coach, is highly regarded.
Yeah.
He takes that over. They have a great defense still. They have decent receivers. Javonte Williams is coming back from injury. Will Russ recover from what was the worst season ever?
Kind of. And like, the thing is, like, Russ, I don't think he can go back to like Russ of the Legion of Boom, because what made him great was he could run for 800 yards in a season and also throw for 3,000. But he also, when he was at his best, had Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, who was able to take a lot of pressure off him. And he was really one of the only dual threat quarterbacks to have that elite running back that he could just hand the ball off to, which made RPOs a lot more dangerous in that system. He had the likes of Doug Baldwin, DK Metcalf there. For me with Denver, not in love with their wide receivers. I think Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton are really good receivers, but I don't see any of them being that AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs really making that difference with it, which I think Russell Wilson needs at this point in his career. Sean Payton isn't going to put up with this bullshit. It's going to be a lot more. You need to take these throws inside the middle for 5 to 10 yards just to keep the drives going, which is, I think, the key element last year was Russ was holding the ball too long, and he had plenty of open receivers. He just wasn't taking that easy 5-yard pass to get the first down, which I think Sean Payton is going to change. And I think that defense is so elite that they'll be able to compete for a playoff spot with that team. So I think they'll be a wild card team. They'll be in the conversation, but they're just not going to be good enough with Russell Wilson, because I've seen games where he was going head to head with Dak, where everyone's like, yeah, Russell Wilson is better than Dak. But there are moments where he could take over the game where he just hasn't stepped up before in his career. And then with the Legion of Boom, it was a lot of being carried by that defense, having some pretty awful games in the playoffs. And the defense was able to win despite of it. And the Super Bowl he did win was because it was an absolute tsunami, one of the most dominant Super Bowl performances probably in NFL history. Yeah. And then the one he lost one possession game head to head with Tom Brady, throws an interception.
Yeah, exactly. Last team in the AFC to cover is the Raiders. Their big moves last year, Josh McDaniels, very clunky start, made some questionable calls, almost beat the Chiefs. Had you just kicked the field goal. But he's staying here. He went out, he got Jacoby Myers. He went out, what else did he do? I mean, there's this Josh Jacobs thing. They got Jimmy Garoppolo. Finally, he leaving San Francisco, moving a couple states down. And then getting rid of Derek Carr, it was the big move. As I look to them this season, how will they be? I feel like they're pretty much in a pretty similar sentiment. Their quarterback's pretty similar. Jimmy Garoppolo probably more of a proven winner. But Raiders, I can't see them being anywhere more than third place in that division. But they should still be competing. It's still a competitive team.
Yeah, I think they'll still be competing. And the thing with Jimmy Garoppolo is he is a proven winner. Another addition to that franchise is Tom Brady is now a part of that franchise. So he'll be in the ear of Josh McDaniels. He'll be in the ear of Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think Garoppolo is definitely a better pair for Josh McDaniels, where Derek Carr had gone through the ringer. He was beat down after that Gruden situation there and all those emails being leaked, and then had some success in his career, but it was very clunky. And then we saw players like Hunter Renfrow not have as good as a year as the year previously he had. So I think with Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, we add Jacoby Myers. So that's a really solid offense. Also added another pass rusher to go along with Max Crosby. So I think they'll be an improved team. I think they'll be better last year. And I think they're going to win more games. It's just like in the AFC, how far can you really push it? And then is the rookie you drafted good enough to step in there when Jimmy Garoppolo inevitably has to take a few weeks off, because it's not normal for him to stay healthy for a full season. So I think this is definitely a year where the Raiders are doing some soul searching. Don't want to go all in on them like I did last year, but I have my eye on them because I think they could be a very interesting team, and they're going to upset a lot of good teams. I think similar to the Titans is probably my sentiment on there. We've talked about the Titans earlier, where kind of took a step back, added DeAndre Hopkins, but how much can they really take another step forward this year? It's kind of where I'm at with the Raiders.